Welcome to Alaska Weather. I'm meteorologist Peter Chan, coming to you from the National Weather Service in Alaska region on this Wednesday, January 15th, 2025. And this is what we have coming up here across Alaska the rest of this week into the upcoming weekend. Some quieter weather will return Thursday across the Gulf Coast and into the Panhandle. Right now, an area of low pressure has pushed across the central Panhandle, and it has brought accumulating snow along with some stronger, gustier winds. But that snow and those winds will be coming down overnight tonight, leading to better weather tomorrow. Building high pressure system will settle in over northwest Canada. In fact, we could see another high with central pressure back up around 1050 millibars by the early weekend. And that's going to allow for colder temperatures, especially at night there across the eastern and central interior. Meanwhile, the storm track is coming up out of the North Pacific, and instead of into the Gulf, it's going to be coming up into the eastern Bering. So that area is going to be more active later this week and through the weekend. We have a couple of different low pressure impulses that'll be lifting northeastward from the North Pacific into the Bering, and the frontal system will provide active weather along it. First, areas of the west coast pushing into the western interior. And by late weekend, early next week, we could finally have a secondary low perhaps develop and move up into the Gulf. But before then, the action is going to be on the west side of the state. So a quick check here of current hazards, watch warnings and advisories. We have first with the Panhandle. High wind warning will expire at 6 p.m. this Wednesday evening. That wind warning was in effect for a wind gust of 50 to 60 miles an hour. But the good news is winds will be coming down overnight, and certainly by Thursday. A winter weather advisory further north in the cold air in the central Panhandle that still includes areas near and south of Juneau, including Sitka. The snowfall is nearing a point where still a little additional light accumulation will be possible this evening, but the advisory for that accumulating snow is set to expire at 6 p.m. as well. And by the time we get into Thursday, the trend will be toward drier weather across most of the Panhandle and along the Gulf Coast, thanks to a ridge of high pressure that'll be nudging eastward. And this high pressure system is going to kind of invigorate itself and reorganize over northwest Canada as we get into Friday and Saturday. Meanwhile, to the west, we have low pressure that'll be crossing up through the Aleutians with a big occluded front working its way up along the southwest and west sides of the state. In advance of that, there are a number of winter weather advisories and winter storm watches that have been issued. Winter weather advisories are in effect from Thursday evening into at least Saturday morning from the Kuskokwim and Yukon deltas, lower Yukon, all the way up through along Norton Sound. And then we have areas of the Seward Peninsula under winter weather advisories, including areas around Kotzebue Sound eastward. The areas of yellow are for a winter storm watch, and that's for late Thursday night into Saturday morning. There could be some heavier snow along with blowing snow, St. Lawrence Island. The area of the Seward Peninsula, Nome through Golovin, and especially the highlands, the upland country there that is north of Nome and Golovin, including White Mountain. And then also areas of the middle Yukon from Holy Cross and Anvik northeastward through Kaltag and on over to Ruby. These areas in yellow could see as much as 5 to 10 inches of snowfall, again, starting very late Thursday evening and through Saturday morning. One other final note, the potential exists for coastal flooding, minor coastal flooding along areas of Kuskokwim Bay, especially in the vicinity of Gillingham. That area there may see water levels 2 to as much as 5 feet above the normal highest tide. A couple weather systems creating the conditions, southeast to south winds that would favor that from Thursday evening into Saturday morning. So on the satellite imagery, if you look over toward the Panhandle, you see the bright whiter cloud tops of this system moving northeastward into Canada. That's what's brought the accumulating snow to the central Panhandle and the strong gusty winds to southern areas of the Panhandle. That low will continue to work its way northeastward and inland which will allow the snow and winds to taper off as we go through the overnight period, with high pressure beginning to build in from the west on Thursday. Meanwhile, further west, if you look southwest of Adak there in the Aleutians, you can see the curl in the clouds. There's a broad area of low pressure with an occluded front that'll be lifting up across the Aleutians into the Bering, and that's going to be the weather system that impacts areas of the southwest and west coast, especially Thursday night and Friday and into the day Saturday. So on the weather map this Wednesday afternoon, we have the one low pressure that's moving in through the central panhandle with the gusty winds and accumulating snows. And again, they will begin to taper off very late tonight, and certainly as we go through the day on Thursday. Trough of low pressure will lag back toward the Kenai Peninsula across the northern Gulf into Thursday. Meanwhile, farther west, there is a 975 low southwest of the Aleutians, and that feature will continue to work its way northeastward over the next couple of days. Late tonight into Thursday morning, we have a lingering trough of low pressure out over the northern Gulf into the northern Panhandle. High pressure trying to rebuild there along the Alcan border at 1036 millibars. And then the low pressure in the North Pacific will approach the central Aleutians, so that by Thursday, that feature, rather broad, will work its way through the western and central Aleutians with the occluded front approaching St. Paul and the lower portion of the Alaska Peninsula. And then notice high pressure starting to build up to 1044 millibars over the Yukon territory. That'll become the dominant feature in the eastern parts of the state and impacting the panhandle here for the early weekend. So that on Friday, that high pressure over northwest Canada reestablishes itself back up around or just above 1050 millibars. That means colder weather there and also lingering in through areas of the eastern interior. Meanwhile, the occluded front works its way further northward with a little milder air south of it, but the stronger southeast to south winds coming up into Kuskokwim Bay is what's going to cause the potential for some minor coastal flooding there later Thursday night into Saturday morning, because we have another impulse of low pressure that'll be riding northward here as we get into the weekend itself. And then in the colder air that's over the middle Yukon Valley and back up through the Seward Peninsula, we have accumulating snow and some gustier winds will cause some blowing snow as well. And that's why there are those winter weather advisories and winter storm watches in effect for those locations. So quick check of temperatures Thursday morning, coldest readings, Yukon Flats, Arctic Village, 25, 30 below, as would be expected with that Canadian high reestablishing itself. Meanwhile, further south, we still have readings in the mid-30s there, southern outer panhandle, Sitka down through Craig and Ketchikan. And then as we go westward, it's still pretty chilly there, single digits along Norton Sound, the Seward Peninsula, lower Yukon Valley. And then readings as we get out into the Aleutians should generally stay above freezing there. For Thursday afternoon, temperatures stay sub-zero across much of the interior, especially north side of the Alaska range all the way up toward the Arctic coast. Readings still managing to pull out the lower 40s, highs around 42 or so, Sitka down toward Craig. And then as we look further west, readings recover into the teens along the western Seward Peninsula, as well as St. Lawrence Island and into the Yukon area, lower Yukon. And then temperatures for the eastern Aleutians on up into lower parts of the Alaska Peninsula, including Unalaska and False Pass and Cold Bay, should be back up around or just above 40. Friday morning, notice the cold there entrenched over and along the Alcan border and extending into the interior. 30 below readings, Arctic Village and Fort Yukon. You can also see 25 to 30 below at some of the normally cold spots like Tok. So that high pressure is going to be building its way back up to 1050 millibars. Areas of the southern panhandle flirting with freezing there at Sitka and Ketchikan, but dipping into the teens, northern parts of the panhandle at Skagway and Haines. And then as we look further southwest, readings hold up around the upper 30s there across the Alaska Peninsula and eastern Aleutians. But with that front lifting north and northeastward across the Bering Sea up into the southwest coast, we do expect temperatures to gradually be moderating and rising through the lower Yukon and Kuskokwim areas, as well as along Bristol Bay. By Friday afternoon, temperatures will be getting at least a few degrees above freezing. And as that warmer air spreads northward, that's why areas of the middle Yukon, especially as you get above Anvik toward Kaltag and Ruby, could see some heavier snow with that warmer air pushing north, as well as portions of the Seward Peninsula and St. Lawrence Island. And then a quick check here for those of you who want to taking a look ahead 6 to 10 days out, January 21st through the 25th. We expect temperatures to average above normal across the entire state, with the greatest probability of that happening across the mainland, and especially for areas of the lower middle Yukon, Kuskokwim, along and west of the Alaska Range. Pretty good likelihood that temperatures are going to average above normal there. Precipitation-wise, we are expecting also precipitation to generally average above normal across the state, but the greatest likelihood, the greatest probability of that happening looks to be along and northwest of the Alaska Range, especially the middle Yukon Valley, west of Fairbanks, northeast of Bethel, and then a large area including around Kotzebue and Norton Sounds, the Seward Peninsula, essentially the western 2/3 of the Brooks Range, and North Slope could see above normal precipitation January 21st through January 25th.